Recorded live from a secret doomsday bunker somewhere in North Dakota. Shh, don't tell. It's the Photo Happy Hour podcast. Hey, and welcome everybody. I'm your Photo Happy Hour bartender, Michael Mowbray. I'm pouring a 16-ounce glass of frothy awesomeness for you today. Joining me behind the bar are Dan Frievalt and Carl Caylor.
¿Qué pasa, amigos? I have a mojito in hand because I'm supposed to be in Mexico, so ¿cómo está?
Hey folks, I'm serving up anything you like today, as long as it's in a really big glass.
In the Photo Happy Hour, the concept is we all grab a drink, and the more we drink, the more photographic knowledge we lay down at you. So we're going to be laying down some knowledge at you today. Today we're talking about what? Location, location, location. So what do we look for when we're out on location? What kind of locations do we look for? Who wants to go first? And don't everybody jump on this opportunity.
Silence.
I'll go. Why not? Location to me has kind of fits right into my whole philosophy of photography in general, in that it's got to have potential for depth and dimension, and it has to have good light. When those two things fit together and exist together, then we can put a subject within that space and record them. It's that simple. However, it gets a lot more technical than that. So we'll probably dive deeper into that as we go. But Dan, what do you look for?
Well, a lot of same things. I look for light. I look for texture. Look for color harmony. I look for easy parking because I have my clients follow me, and I try and bounce to several different locations during a shoot. And so just kind of also looking for areas where I can possibly get a couple different looks in the same area, so that maybe we don't have to drive as far, or we can just walk around the corner and get, something from a brick looking kind of background, and then walk around the corner and maybe have some brick mixed with ivory, so it has a little bit softer, naturey kind of feel to it.
I look for kind of the same thing because I like to be really efficient on location. So if I drive somewhere with a client, I want to be able to get multiple different looks in that same spot, just so we don't suck up so much time, going from place to place to place. So that being said, do you have favorite places where if you're not sure where to go, hey, I always go here because I know I can always get something good? And if you want to give people exact GPS coordinates for that, because they're going to be asking after this, I know that.
It's just like my fishing hole. I will tell you exactly where it is, and you will never get there. And yet I'll find a bazillion people there anyway, but that's just the nature of the beast, I guess. There's certain places that I go to that I know are going to work at all time or each day at a certain time. And that's the other thing, is that depending on the time of day, I'll have different places I know are going to work for this outfit that they have on. So I'll kind of eyeball their outfits, and I know in my mind where I'm going to be driving and what direction I'm going to be driving based on their outfits and the time of day that we're dealing with. But the first thing I think we all look for is something that stops downlight, to keep everything in the background consistent and make sure that the light that we're controlling or adding to is coming from the side or 45 as opposed to straight down on them. And so I'm looking for overhangs, edges of wooded areas, rock outcroppings out by me out in the woods area, but places that are going to be easy to control the light. Because again, we've talked about this on other podcasts, but a lot of us, or I don't work with an assistant right now, so I need the light to be pretty doggone simple, or very easily controlled by myself. So
I'm a little different because I'll pick the spot based on if I like the color, if I like the texture, if I like the composition, and if the light sucks, I'll just kill the light and create all my own light. So I'll default to that, and it's like, man, this place is cool, and I want to create something here. The upside to that is other people will see that and go, oh well, I want to go there and shoot that same shot. Good luck, buddy. Good luck, because you don't know how much I killed that light and how much light I created.
Michael brings more toys than the rest of us.
I tend to, yeah. Well, and it gives me more options, because then as I see these places, I'm like, that's cool. What could we do there? And sometimes it's almost like a challenge. It's like, oh, wow, look at that. The light really sucks over there. Let's go create something.
I used to enjoy that at weddings. It's like, hey, look there's a fountain. Let's go shoot over here, the whole wedding party. And it's like,
No.
no, that's not gonna work. Even
Did I ever tell you my fountain
lighting.
story?
Your what story?
Your
My
fountain
fountain
story?
story? I remember the exact date. It was July 7th, 2007. So the 777 weekend that everybody tried to look up. And it was on a golf course, and there was a fountain in the pond, and they really wanted to do a shot over there. So I was like, okay, fine. It's like, what do you guys want to do? Because I'm really not into this. They're like, well, can we do like one of those dip kisses? I'm like, yeah, sure, go for it. They do a dip kiss, and I take one shot, and I look at the back of the camera, and I bust out laughing. And they're like, what? Why? What are you laughing about? Did we kiss funny? It's like, no, you guys kissed just great. Here's the problem. And I turned the back of the camera over to them, and the bride's name was Heather. And I said, it looks like Heather is I don't know, sprung a leak. It was coming right out of her.
Location.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So be careful of that stuff.
Absolutely.
That reminds me of some memes I saw with funny mergers. But yeah, well, and you bring up, or I guess I brought it up, but bad locations. We can maybe talk about that and how to work with them. I know, Michael, you talked a little bit if you can control the light. One reason I love photographing high school seniors is because it's just one subject. So it's a lot easier to find little nooks and crannies or edge of lights or shade, or even if it's in bright sunlight, it's like, okay, we can do something edgy and creative, and they could have sunglasses on or just look, if they're not smiling, looking at the camera, again, keeping the context of the image in mind. This isn't a classic portrait. You can break some rules. Think fashion imagery, and you can have hard direct shadows and sunlight and everything. Now that's not going to work for every image during that senior session, but you can pull it off and change up your style and your lighting a little bit by, going in harsh sun.
And it gives you a variety.
And how many times have you guys taken a photo in a ditch?
Oh, lots.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah. You got one little patch of like funky Wisconsin wildflowers.
Or Michigan.
Or Michigan, yes. And it's simple. You got one person, you got a long lens, you can compress the heck out of it, and you can really isolate them. And suddenly that little spot turns into like this glorious background. And, nobody would ever guess
that.
It's glorious. It's wonderful.
Well, you hit it right. You hit my next point right on the head there, Michael, is location really can be determined by your lens selection as well, because a lot of people will walk by locations that are wonderful, but they don't see it because they're looking at the whole scene instead of what that little angle is going to be on your 200 millimeter lens, and then what it's going to look like wide open. So, I mean, you got to think of all your locations in terms of what you're going to use as equipment as well. And like you said, if it doesn't have good light there, we bring on our own because we can.
Exactly. Well, and maybe we should, because we have all ranges of photographers listening to this, from very experienced pros to people who are very new. And maybe we should explain how the focal length of the lens will affect how the background looks.
Are you going to do math? We're going to have to drink again.
No, I'm not going to do any math.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. Shotsky.
But think about it. You talked about it, using a 200 millimeter lens.
Yep.
For all the space that's behind the subject. Basically, what does that do? What does it make it look like? What are some things that happen when you use a longer telephoto lens to the background?
Well, in my case, in all cases, because it's physics, but when it compresses things, and two, it narrows down your angle of view. And to me, the angle of view is probably the most important thing, because I'm trying to keep all the tonal ranges the same throughout the whole entire image that we're seeing. And if it's a shaded area that the subject is in, I want to make sure that the whole background contains that same tonal range so that the person jumps off the page. So by using a longer lens, any time of day, I can find little nooks and crannies that we're only seeing little bits and pieces of. So the long lens to me is great for confining the scene, but compressing everything is wonderful too, especially if you're using your depth of field in different creative ways, and photographing wide open. And letting everything kind of mush and get creamy and milky and everything. It's all it's all fun too. But to me, it's the angle, the small angle that's helping the most.
One way I've always explained it to clients or even to other photographers is I always ask, have you ever watched a baseball game? And like, well, yeah, okay. Have you ever seen like a left-handed batter and they give you the camera view from third base and they're going back to the batter? Yeah. What do the people behind the batter look like? I was like, well, they look like they're right behind them. It's like, well, yeah, they're using a really, really long lens. They look like they're like 2 feet behind the batter. And they also look like they're bigger than the batter because you could see that woman eating nachos. And you can see her elbow on one side and her other elbow on the other side, and the nachos and the beer on either side. Because it's almost like it takes that background and widens it, narrows that field of view, compresses it, but almost visually widens what's happening behind them. It's a weird thing.
So the takeaway from that, nachos, exactly. Doggone, no, on
beer.
Ooh, beer.
Well, yeah, and going off that principle, I know I've done this, and you guys may have as well. But it's like, oh, I want to do some color harmony, and someone has a yellow shirt on or a yellow dress, and we're walking. I'm like, oh, hey, there's some blue porta potties way back in the distance. Let's line you up right here and take a shot, and you have a blue background, which is porta potties or like a dumpster. And dumpsters are great location backgrounds if they're far enough away and they have great color and texture, and you can use the short depth of field and compress the background, and you have yourself a blue background that has great color harmony.
Or right on top of it, because a lot of times they're like patchy paint and rusty and everything. I'll put them right on top of it. You have no idea what it is.
Right on top of the porta potty?
Or the dumpster. I've done both.
Just hold your nose.
I've used a porta potty for framing, where you open up the door and they just kind of block that top light and they're framed in. I had no idea it was a porta potty.
I've used porta potties for other things, but let's not.
Never for backgrounds.
Well, I have definitely used them for backgrounds. Absolutely, yes.
There's a particular location that I use, and there's some dumpsters right next to it, and they are especially in the middle of summer when it's 90 degrees
ripe.
Yes, and you also you'll be shooting and you catch a whiff of it. So I actually had, it's like one of my favorite locations, and people love the images except for one time a parent's like, I just can't buy any of those images because all I can think of is when I look at those is that smell that was wafting out of there that day.
You have to work upwind of them. Come on, you got to do this the right way.
That's the problem. Where they are, it's secluded. There's a little alleyway. There's no wind like whipping through there. So the good thing is it does keep away some other photographers, I guess, from shooting in there.
You hit on a really good thing though, and this is why it was a fight in my mind to build sets here or to still take the time and energy to go to locations. And I keep going back to going on locations for just that reason. There's a mindset that if it was real or all the different senses that are involved with the human faculties, more or less, they come into play in sales. And if it was real, or if like you said, Dan, okay, I can't buy any of that because I can still smell that raunchy smell. They're not going to buy it. So that's one of the reasons why I still travel, and that's why I always joke to my clients that okay, you got to make sure you have your seatbelt on because when I see something cool, I'm hitting the brakes, dude, and we're going to be like squealing in sideways sometimes because, hey, that's really cool. Does anybody else get photogasms, or is that just me? I mean,
no, I do.
Good. But because you're driving down the road, you're hitting 60, 65 miles an hour, and you see this really cool background in your mind, you're visioning it, and you're like, stop. That's why we have to wear seatbelts, because you find those locations that, oh, dang, this is cool. And most people are driving right by and they're not noticing, but it's real. And that's what people, I think, is important, that maybe not your entire session, but that part of your session hits all the different senses that you can capture. And the reality is a big part of it. And that, okay, it wasn't a fake foam rock that we sat on, but we couldn't really lean on it because the photographer told me that if I leaned on it too hard, it would break it or smush it. No, if you have things that are real, people are more real about it, and your sales go up because of it, because of the locations that you're finding. Are you guys finding that too? Or have you seen that?
No, I think it's all part of the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think well, not, I don't think, I know for sure it also helps to value you more as a professional. And maybe professional isn't the right term. Maybe as an artist, as a visionary, as hey, because I'll get that a lot too. Parents are like, I was right next to him when he shot that. And I'm looking at these images, I'm like, I did not see that. Like how, and I do the same thing, Carl. Like I'll do a clothing consultation and I'll write down the outfits and I'll write down the colors because that's what I'm looking for. And I have like a kind of a outline of where I want to go, but I have them follow me, the clients, and they're like, where are we going? I'm like, just follow me because I'm gonna I have an idea where I'm gonna go, but I'll change my mind 10 times from the point we leave the studio till we get there because I'm always looking like, oh my gosh, because of that outfit that you brought in, I now am seeing something different. And along with those lines, what I try and tell people when teaching and stuff and talking about locations is one thing I like to do is not take like the same route all the time, either during a session or even on the way to my studio, or if I am going to the post office or wherever I'm going, I try and purposely, if I have time, go a different route because all of a sudden I'll go down some side road and be like, oh my gosh, this is something I never noticed before. And people will ask me a lot during the sessions, like, how do you find these places? Like, do you just drive around? And it's like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And at different times of day too. I mean, that's very important, I think, to just on a rainy day drive around and find stuff. But remember, it's going to look different on a sunny day, or different in the morning, different in the evening. So different times of day, if you have time, just drive around, find places.
Different times of the year, you know.
Definitely.
One of the things that really got me going creatively in my career was because most of what I did in the early days and just recently stopped doing was weddings. And I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, and everybody's got to go to the Capitol on
I
Saturday
don't.
for the wedding.
Oh,
You'll see 8 other wedding parties there. And so what got me going creatively was, and I would have this conversation with my bride and groom, is like, you know what? Everybody's going there and they're all getting the same photos. So what I want to do is if there's a couple of photos that you really want that you've seen before, we'll do that. Fine. But let me create something different. So there was like this creative pressure to go to the same location that everybody else goes to and create something that looks different from what everybody else gets. So that was nice because it did force me to kind of think outside the box. And it's like, well, everybody's got this shot on the steps with the dome. Okay, let's do something. Well, there's this drive-through underneath the steps. Let's go in this tunnel where it's going to block the light. We're going to have some really nice light in there. Nobody ever shoots in there. And that was actually one of the first awards I ever won in print competition, was something I shot in that location. It was not something that people had seen before. So, that kind of leveraged into, okay, now we'll get our Capitol shots. Now I want to go on what I used to call a walkabout. I want to go a block away from the Capitol where everybody else is. And I'm going to go down these back alleys. I'm going to go behind the bars. I'm going to go behind the restaurants where these old decrepit buildings are. And I always like the look of this beautiful bride with the beautiful dress and the contrast with like the dank, dirty, crusty crap in the back of the alley. It was a cool look, and it was something that other people weren't doing at the time. Everybody's copied it since then, but that's one of the things that really kind of leveraged what I was doing, earlier in my career, was taking the same location and trying to create something different and then going just a little bit beyond.
Yeah, and a fun exercise that we had done years ago is got together with a group of photographers from different parts of like Wisconsin, for instance, and we weren't competitors. We weren't shooting in the same county or whatever, but we got together and it's like, let's go and go to your favorite locations. So for instance, they would come to Green Bay and I'd take them to my favorite locations, but I would not shoot there. I would see how they would interpret the location and how they would shoot. And it's like, wow, I never thought of that angle or that particular lighting scenario or that pose and that angle and that lighting scenario. And all of a sudden you walked away with, a ton of new ideas just on seeing how another photographer interpreted your locations, and then we'd go to do the same thing in their area. So we all benefited from that little exercise.
That's a cool idea. If we're ever allowed to see each other again, we should do that.
Right?
We'll just stay like just 12 feet apart to be doubly safe and do it anyway.
What we could do is we could all get into like this whole FaceTime thing, and you just walk around with your phone, and we'll just tell you when to stop and take that photo.
Yeah,
Just
stop
not
there.
the same. Just not the same.
Turn
No,
that way.
and you hit on a couple things that I look at too. I mean, because I'm not only, when I'm choosing locations, I'm not only thinking about depth and dimension and graphic design as far as the background. You had already mentioned color harmony, so I'm looking at what colors that the subject is wearing. I'm looking at the textures and patterns that they're wearing to see if there's something similar in the areas that I can find to go to. And when that happens, then it's just, a plus, plus, plus. It's funny because I always mention this because we didn't talk about our studios. In our studio, that's a location too, and our backgrounds that we choose, and you have to choose them wisely. But it's funny how the mom at by outfit 3 or 4, while the seniors in their dressing room getting changed, I'm putting up the background that I know, because I know it's going to coordinate with their outfit. Because I've looked at their outfits, I put them in the order in my mind. I know when they come out, they're going to be wearing this. I'm going to have this background up because it matches in color and texture and pattern and all that kind of stuff. But it's funny. It cracks me up every time the mom goes, "Oh my gosh, we're so lucky." So and I'm like, why are we lucky? What's going on? So, well, our outfits have been matching your backgrounds perfectly. No kidding. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
It
wonder
just
how that
happened.
happened.
What are the
By
odds of
chance,
that?
let's go to Vegas, dude, because yeah, I mean, we're that lucky. No, but we do things for a purpose. I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's not done by chance. It's done purposefully. We're creating with a purpose, with a vision, and we know what's going to happen before we press that button. We should, right? I mean, that's the whole point, I guess.
Sometimes you have happy accidents, though. It's like, ooh, oops. Oh, wait, that's cool. Ooh,
Yeah.
how'd I do that?
That's it. Well, and bouncing off of that, we're kind of hitting the 12 elements, which are our print competition, but that's what makes your everyday images look better as well. And I'm big on storytelling. And so color harmony and storytelling, and Carl, you touched on this, and Michael as well, as, what kind of story you're trying to tell with that image. And so let's say you have, a bride, like you said, and normally you want to put them in this beautiful area, but maybe you want to do a juxtaposition and put them in a grungy, alley. And then that is what makes it cool, or maybe it's like, I'll look at the outfits and go, like, I think these outfits are going to look good in an urban setting, and these outfits are going to look better in a nature setting. So I want to kind of tell that story. And then we can break the rules, as well, and say, this outfit, for instance, would look great in a field, but let's do it in this like grungy, like nasty area, but just make sure you do it with intention and do it
right.
That's very, very clear, I guess, that you are breaking the rules so that people get it,
and do it purposely so that it doesn't look like a mistake. Make it look like you meant it. If you're gonna go big or stay home.
Oh, right, absolutely.
Is anybody else out of their drink? I need another drink.
I was just going to declare a sociable, but I see you guys are dry. And
yeah. I heard Carl's ice clinking as I was talking before. He's like,
I still got a finger and a half of scotch left here, so
I might have to run up and get another bottle quick. I mean, you guys, can you carry on for like 3 minutes?
talk amongst yourselves.
How fast can you run? Hey, it's a good time to take a quick break. We'll be right back in a second. The Photo Happy Hour is brought to you in part by MoLight and Golden Eagle USA. Golden Eagle provides the best value in color-critical LED lighting tools for photographers and videographers alike. Check out the wide array of LED options at the MoLight web store at www.gomolight.com. MoLight is proud to be the exclusive U.S. distributor of Golden Eagle LEDs. So we've restocked on our favorite beverages here, and Dan, I think you had something you wanted to add in on the whole location thing.
Oh, I thought I was going to talk about how I made my mojito.
Oh, you can do that too.
It looks very good, but
It
very
does look good.
refreshing.
If you guys could only see this mojito, it is quite.
That's a lot of mint. Where are you getting mint this time of year?
Oh, I have my own little special.
Don't tell him, don't tell him, don't tell him.
I have my own little quote unquote special mint.
Garden.
I do grow my own mint. I know this time of year it's not growing yet, but yeah, that does bring up a story. With one time my buddy wanted a bunch of mint, so my neighbor, I went over with a little baggie full of mint. I'm like, I have your delivery. Looked a little suspicious, but yeah. So, anyways, location. I want to talk a little bit about locations as far as sets and things. Carl brought it up earlier. If you have land that you can put sets in or build sets or whatever, I actually rented a chunk of land for a while and had an old truck, which Carl has now. So I had the old rusty truck, and I had built a couple other sets there, like a swing in a tree, and like barnwood background doors, and just a couple different things where I could go where the light was consistent and photograph there. And I got a really good deal on it, and I wanted to put more sets up, but I just kind of lost interest because even though it just was kind of the same thing all the time. And if I had my own land where I could really build and have things that were permanent, I could even get an old piano or something. I know some people have done that. And, I've seen some free ones on like eBay, or not eBay, Craigslist. They just want them out for free. So that's like a cool prop, but they're heavy. You have to pay like a couple $100 to have someone move it. But the other reason is we got eaten alive by mosquitoes because it was this really nice little stream that I thought I would use. And when I looked at the land, it was, spring. So I wasn't thinking mosquitoes in the middle of the summer. Oh man, did we get eaten alive there. But there are some benefits of that if you don't get burnt out, and you can have something that's unique that no one else, can, because it's on your own land. Hopefully no one else. I've heard horror stories where other photographers are catching photographers on their land.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We've got friends who we all of us have friends that have like big, almost like portrait parks. Gary's got his down in Oklahoma, though, which is, he's got frickin' planes in his portrait
space
park.
shuttle. No,
yeah, dude, no, I think he does have a space shuttle now.
I don't think he got the bid on that one, but
oh, he's got a Sputnik there, I think, too. Got that cheap from Russia. And like Marcy and Christy down in Indiana, they've got a pretty cool. They build outside sets all the time. And Carl, I think you worked with a set, or started to build a set a couple of years ago.
I do. Well, it's funny because some of the areas that I used to go to, the nice grungy, rundown, decrepit areas where you got to make sure you're up to date on your tetanus shots. They were wonderful places, but they kept tearing them down on me.
Yes.
Or keep fixing stuff up.
I know.
City wants things to look nice.
The nerve of people, and actually the funny thing is, one of the last places one of the places I used to go a lot, and it was an old building, stone building. It was really a cool location, to say the least. But the last time I used it, we pulled in, and I was getting everything kind of pulled out of the truck. And as I was standing there by the truck, this bear runs by.
What?
I kid you not. It was a good sized bear. I mean, it was definitely not a baby, and to say the least. And it ran by. It was probably about 40 yards away, and the mom and the senior both saw it, and that was unfortunate because then they would not get out of the truck. So packed it, put everything back in the vehicle, and we drove off to a different place. But next time I went back, it was tore down. They I thought, the last chance I had to photograph this, and it was gone. But now that's when I started deciding I was going to build my own. And I built my own decrepit, knockdown place. And it's actually kind of funny because we had changed insurance companies 2 years ago, and the new adjuster was in. He went through the whole house and the studio and everything. And he wrote me up because I had, what do you call it? A decrepit insufficient building on the premises. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, it's a photo prop, you moron. I said, that's not a building, that's a photo prop. And he goes, oh, so they kind of laughed about that. But the problem with props and building your own sets that I find is that you have to try very hard not to do the same thing with each person. It's
Right.
very easy to get into a rut, to get into a program in your mind as to, okay, pose 1, pose 2, pose 3, next outfit, pose 1, pose 2, pose 3, next outfit. And if you do that, in some areas you can get away with it. In my area, there's only a few schools here and everybody knows everybody else, and they all look at those images. And if you don't have something that's different, they're going to have an issue with that. So you just have to be very careful to use your sets differently each time for each person that comes in.
I end up building in my own little barnwood set, and I've got a residential studio, but I didn't want to build it, but I had to because I made tens of thousands of dollars off this old decrepit railroad depot building that was downtown DeForest. It's a suburb I live in. And what was beautiful about it is each of the 4 sides was different. And depending on the time of the day, the light was always beautiful there. You could go to whatever side the light was great. And somebody got the great idea that they're going to get a federal grant or something. I don't know where they got the money from. $200,000 they spent to fix this place up, and they painted it orange. Orange.
Oh.
And it's being used for what now? Nothing. So it's like, really? So I picked up some barnwood. I built some rusty tin and stuff like that. I built a little set just off of my patio and by my pergola. So it's like we get to look at it when we're out grilling and having drinks on the patio. Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, Carl. There's only so much space and there's only so many different shots I can do on that. But the funny thing is, and I struggle with this, everybody likes the same shots off that set. So I end up
something sell.
I know. I find myself, I try to do something different and I end up doing the same things too. Guess which ones sell? The ones that I've done for everybody else. But I'm not doing high volume. So it's not like, there's 50 kids that have the same look. I might have 10 kids that were shot on that set, and they're all from different schools, or only 2 of them are from DeForest, and some of them are from, one of the other neighboring towns. So I'm not getting a lot of that crossover. But the weird thing is, yeah, they all like the same thing and they always sell. And half of them they want to use for their yearbook shot. I have to think, oh my God, did Timmy use this for his yearbook shot? No, we shouldn't do that one. We should do this one for your yearbook shot.
So Michael, do you photograph DeForest through the trees?
No.
But he can.
All right, just wondering.
No,
I had to ask.
but you can see DeForest through the
Through
trees.
the trees.
Through the
Yes,
trees.
yes. And one key point I want to bring up, speaking of locations, especially locations that you do not own, is to make sure you ask permission and ask permission. At least for me, I ask every time I go to that location because things have changed. their interpretations change. And the other thing I do is I go in and I give them business. If it's in front of a restaurant and I've used it, I'm going to buy gift cards, or I'm going to use that restaurant and give them business back. I feel like that's just a courtesy and something that they appreciate. And maybe they'll allow me to keep coming back if I also, give them business.
You're always giving them the business.
And give them the business. Yeah.
Give them the business.
We'll go in and do shots and then, go back out and keep shooting,
We've done that at Texas school, actually. Our class ended up in the bar for the whole afternoon.
No, I don't drink during my sessions, but the parents are always like, hey.
That was a different story.
Yeah. Parents are like, hey, can I go in and have a drink? I'm like, sure, you can.
Go for it.
Bring me one too.
Yeah. So, I think that's a real key point. And I have the luxury, at least in the small town that I'm in, is people are really cool as long as you're, respectful and you're not impeding business. Impeding, is that the right word?
Sure.
Okay.
Could be. Sure, we'll go with it.
If you're not, you say I'm not like right in the front doors and people feel like they can't walk in. But having said that, I've photographed all over the country when I teach. In some places, they're like, even on the sidewalk, they'll have security come out like, you can't shoot here. It was like, oh, okay, what, really? Like, yeah. Or you go in and ask someone and they're like, no, you can't shoot here. It's like, oh, we're just going to be out here on the sidewalk. No, you can't even be within 100 yards of the facade or something crazy. It's like, wow, okay.
and legally they can't do that.
Right. Or permits. Some places
if it's in the public.
I ran into one place that both of those are incorrect.
All right.
I was photographing or teaching at GLIP in the Michigan school, and there was a family we were going to photograph with dad and mom and 2 daughters with his motorcycle, and the motorcycle was yellow, and it was really nice custom job on the motorcycle. And so I hopped in the vehicle with whoever, I don't even know who it was that was driving. I'm in the back seat. You know how those times go when you wish there was a brake in the back seat, or at least a steering wheel. And so we're driving to this location that I don't know where we're going. And on the way there, I saw this location. I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Stop the car. We got to go photograph here. And I was having one of those photogasms that we talked about. And so, but the driver's like, oh no, we have to go to this other place because everybody's meeting us there. And I thought, okay, fine. I said, pouted for a while in the back seat. But when we got there, I'm like, okay, let's hurry up. Let's get this one done. And good. Smile, smile, smile. Click, click, click. Great. Let's go over here instead. So we all drove back to this other location. And it was wonderful. It was curvy lines, and the colors matched his motorcycle. It was wonderful. But I was, well, like normal, I'm too short. I was too short for the photograph. So it was like climbing up the light pole. I was on the sidewalk. So I'm like holding on onto the light pole with my legs. And I was photographing with my 645 Mamiya. And out comes this security officer asking us to leave and then threatening us with, the police force. And it turns out that you can't photograph in the teller area of the bank.
Oh yeah.
The drive-through teller area. Yeah. They get upset about that.
Yeah.
But it was a perfect location. They got curvy lines and the colors matched. It was wonderful. But yeah, they actually escorted us out of the facility. And so there's some places where you just can't work.
Well, like like a casino and some federal buildings, things like that.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, there's the federal courthouse in Madison is kind of cool, and I wanted to shoot out in front of that. And I couldn't be on their grounds, but I could be out in the street. On the street, that's public, and everything viewed from that particular place is public view. So you could take it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And
a lot of people are going in stores now.
Yeah, that's well, don't even get me started on that. I'll get on my
But you gotta ask.
You gotta ask, yes.
You ask, and you have to again be respectful to to businesses. Would you like someone all of a sudden rolling into your studio and like doing something there? Like you kind of just be respectful. There's tons of locations out there that you can be creative in. So and have permits. Like there's certain places, parks and different areas,
beaches,
that you'll need a permit to photograph. And again, I don't think there's any areas, but if you're not respectful, you ruin it for everyone.
Right.
And so just keep that in mind, and also be respectful, try to be respectful to nature. There's certain areas I don't go to anymore because they've been so overrun by photographers. And it's sad because I look and everything's just trampled. And there used to be beautiful wildflowers that would spring up there in the fall. Well, now because it's so trampled from so many people and so much traffic that that doesn't come up anymore, and it's really sad. So
you see that with lavender farms too, because everybody got into that. Oh my gosh, the lavender is so pretty. Yeah, it is pretty, but that's a private business enterprise, a private farm, and people are climbing fences and sneaking out in these lavender fields and damaging the plants. And there was a lavender farm not far from here. They used to let people go on their property, and they had to stop. And I thought about calling them and say, look, charge them money. People will pay it. You can make a little side money here, but I also understand if you just don't want people on the land. But people are just so rude. And like Dan was saying, they'll trample the flowers. They have that problem in Texas when the blue bonnets pop up. Everybody's out there trampling all the blue bonnets. I've seen times where I've been on location where I could tell there was another senior there a while ago or sometime in the last week because I find glitter everywhere because they did like a glitter thing. It's like, well, I don't know. Last time I saw, I don't think glitter grows in the wild. And you don't know what that does to the wildlife. You don't know what that does to the birds.
And another thing that I didn't know, I learned this through someone else, and they didn't know either. And not that I've ever done this, but just as a kind of a warning, like you'll see people write with like sidewalk chalk in brick alleys and stuff like classic, whatever, or like baby, and things like that, which you would think that, oh, I'll just wash off, but because it's it's not flat on a flat surface like a sidewalk, it's on a vertical surface. It doesn't. It's kind of caustic, I guess, and it's really hard to come off. And it's happened to a photographer. Someone did it right in their back alley, and and they posted it like, who did this? And the person came clean because they're like, I didn't know that was going to be, and they washed it and everything was cool. But I guess just something to keep in mind, like think of, just because it may wash off on the sidewalk, it's not gonna wash off on a brick wall. So I'm glad I never did it.
Exactly. I tell my seniors when we're driving around, so number one, does everybody have their no trespassing shoes on? And I always ask, I know
which are like track shoes so you can run, right?
Darn right. Whoever's the slowest gets caught. That's all there is to it. It's just like with the scene with the Bears by us too. Whoever's the slowest, well, you're just out of luck. Whoops, I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
We'll bleep that.
All right, we'll bleep that. But and I joke, I said, if anybody questions us or asks, because I've already asked the permission for places I'm going, so I'm not worried. But I joke about it. I said, if anybody comes up to us and start asking us questions about where we are, what we're doing, or who we are, I'm your Uncle Melvin. We're from Ohio, and we're here to photograph the Youth Organization of America. Either that, or I tell them I'm one of our competitors in town, and the kids always laugh about that. But yeah, you just have fun with it. But be respectful. Find areas that have good light, good backgrounds, good vision for what you want to do and the story you want to tell. But also at the same time, be respectful for not only the property owner, but for nature in general. There's too much that's just been trashed lately in parks and national parks, and it's sad. It's very sad. So no photograph that you can sell to somebody is worth messing up what was there for somebody else that's going to come in the future.
And don't pet the buffalo.
Stay the hell away from the buffalo. There's another bleep, but stay away from the buffalo.
Carl's getting drunk, I think.
It's cursing. So for don't pet the buffalo, we'll call it sociable. Everybody drinks.
Oh, and
cheers.
And I was gonna call it. It's kind of sound like a soapbox sociable because I was on a rant. Soapbox.
Everybody drink again.
Everyone drink again. That's a double drink.
Go mojitos.
So who wants to talk about tangents on location? Anybody want to grab that? I'll grab it. What the heck? You know what I'm talking about? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? When you got stuff coming out of somebody's head. So it's one of the first mistakes I see people who go out for the first time, or even the 75th time, or even in my case, the 5 millionth and 75th time, where you look at it later on, it's like, oh man, I got like a tree branch coming right out of the middle of their head. Or in church, I used to have, I remember one of the best ones. It was like, I had Jesus coming out of the top of somebody's head. I'm like, yeah, it's
not a bad thing.
Oh, no, but it was very spiritual and it was very lovely. And, we all got, anyway, but yeah, be aware when you're looking in the background and you're placing your subjects that you don't have weird things coming out of their body, like branches or feet or stop signs or things that are going to make you have to spend time in Photoshop later,
or use those mergers or tangents to your advantage. So if you have a sculpture in the background or something that has cool curves, it's like pose them in a way that those are leading lines that help bring that image to the next level.
Or secondary subjects. One of my mentors, Millie Todashek's, way back in the day, she looked at my work on the very first class that we took up at Tree Haven, the week-long BPA school in Wisconsin. And she looked at my work, and I was thinking, she's going to love this. This is great. And she turned the page, and she didn't say anything. She turned the next page, and silence. Next page, she goes, all right, kids, I'm going to tell you something right now. You got to start looking behind your subjects. You got to look in the background. Look at your scenes. And she didn't say anything else. She went to the next page. And the next page, she said, all right, you got to start. You have to look behind your subjects. And it took me 3 years to figure out what she was talking about. It wasn't just the candlesticks and Jesus and everything else that's sticking out behind people's heads. It was also things that could help support your image, your subject, secondary subjects, things that help repeat, things that the colors that coordinate, the harmony, the geographical lines, the eye traps, the milk in the photograph, and we'll talk about that later, but on a different podcast. But
okay.
Well, again, it's a whole different episode. Okay. But things that help create depth and dimension, and that's important because we're dealing with flat pieces of paper that we're selling, and we want them to look like we can reach into them, and that's the location that will create power and that will create emotion, that will help tell your story more powerfully if you can create something that's not just flat and more three-dimensional. And that's what she was trying to get across to us, but it took me years to figure it out. And it's something that each person has to figure out a little bit on their own. But it's when you do figure it out, when you do see it, it's that light bulb moment. It's like that Despicable Me ding, where we're like, oh my gosh, that's what they're saying. That's what this is. That's the advanced part of photography, of portrait work. And when you see it, call me, tell me you saw it, because I will be happier than, well, pigs and whatever. But
pigs in a glass of whiskey.
Pigs in the blanket.
Ooh.
Exactly.
And also pay attention.
And nachos.
Pay attention to what's around your feet, because knowing what poison ivy looks like is helpful. Knowing what stinging nettle is, which I found out.
Knowing where the edge of the bank is before you walk into the water.
Where you back up, off the side of the pier. Yeah. Knowing your own space and your own location is also important. Backing into the highway.
And when you're on location somewhere else other than your own quote unquote neighborhood, you need to understand what's safe and not safe too. I mean, I was teaching down in Louisiana one time, and the sun was going down. It was gorgeous, rolling little hills and long grass, and I'm going, oh, we gotta go there. The sunset was beautiful, and I started running out in this field, and I'm like, come on, let's go. And the girl had this long flowing dress. It was absolutely wonderful, and everybody stopped dead at the edge of the cut grass. I'm like, come on, let's go. The light's gone. We're losing the light. And it's like, no. There's snakes out there.
There'll be snakes out there, Carl.
I walked on top of the grass. I didn't walk. I ran on top of the grass all the way back. I'm like, holy crap. Because that's something to think about. Back where we live, there is nothing like that can bother
Except bears.
Us.
Bears, yeah.
I'm not worried about bears. But yeah, I mean, you got to be aware of your surroundings. Like when we were out in Waco in the desert, or at Tom's place or Buddy's place, what did he say could hurt us? The ants, the roadrunners, scorpions.
Four different kinds of snakes that can kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's everything out there could kill us.
Yeah, they're like, don't lay on the ground. I'm laying on the ground taking photos. Like, you shouldn't be laying on the ground. Yeah, exactly. Or be aware of. Again, I'm from a small town, and one of my stories is that we had permits and everything. With a friend of mine who he photographs a lot of abandoned buildings. So we went to Gary, Indiana, and we were photographing in these abandoned buildings, and it was all legit and everything. But it's like you get focused on what you're doing, and all of a sudden the sun was going down. You start hearing gunshots and stuff, and it's like, okay, pack up your stuff, let's go. And it's like we were on like the third floor, and we were making our way down, and we were on the third floor where the roof was missing. So it was much brighter up there. We didn't kind of realize. And as we're coming down the steps, and it's like, oh, we can't really see here. It's like, I had my phone with the light so I could see, and we get out. They're like, where were you guys? They're like, they're packing up the truck. Like, we got to get out of here. So yeah, kind of aware of your surroundings that way too.
So do you guys have any parting shots for today?
If you can find a place that has good geographic, good depth, good potential for depth, has good light, it's great. If you have a place that has great light, well, and your background sucks, well, bring in a background. If you have a place that's a really cool background, like Michael had said at the beginning of the program, but the lighting stinks, bring in your own lighting. But you need to have both. You need to have a good location. You need to have good lighting. When those two things exist, whether it's artificial, natural, or otherwise, then your subject can exist within that space and you can record them. And then the recording comes down to lens selection, your vision, what you want to see, what story you want to tell, what colors that they have, what patterns that they have, the textures, all those different things that are artistic and powerful. When all those things work together, record it. Press the button.
Magical.
It's magical.
Speaking of magical, today's episode is brought to you by Donkey Piss Tequila. While our name is fun, our taste is serious. Donkey Piss Tequila, when you no longer care what you're drinking.
I didn't get to give my parting shot.
Oh,
but
wait.
What am I? Yeah. Carl's slurring his words and drunk. You don't even give me a chance. Right to the Donkey Piss Tequila. I see how I rate.
You come in second to Donkey Piss Tequila.
Go.
I was just going to mention that this is how I always end like my clothing consultation. It's like, clothing is important and your hair and makeup is important and locations are important, but really the subject is most important. So all those things go into creating a great photograph, and they all are pieces of the puzzle, but ultimately focus on your client. That's what's important. You can make any location work if you have the right tools and everything as well. So that's all I wanted to end with.
All right. That's all for this week. Till next time, cheers to you.
Cheers.
Salute.
Last call.
You've been listening to the Photo Happy Hour podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss a single action-packed episode. And join our Photo Happy Hour Facebook group where we'll post links to the stuff we all talk about. You can find my MoLight gear online at www.gomolight.com. That's GOMOLIGHT.com. You can find the Facebook page under MoLight Store, and I also run the Godox Flash Help Group on Facebook. You can find Dan's Senior Unlocked website at www.seniorsunlocked.com. That's seniors with an S at the end, unlocked.com. And the Facebook group under Seniors Unlocked. And you can find Carl's Coaching Corner at www.ccphotocoach.com, ccphotocoach.com. Till next time, cheers to you.
If you have enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and give this fellowship the highest possible rating. Do so with great haste. Fly, you fools!